The German aces laughed at the P-51 Mustang. They called it a mediocre performer, nothing to worry about. But on March 6, 1944, 209 of them appeared over Berlin, and the laughter stopped forever. This wasn't just a story about an airplane, but a deeper problem. It was a deadly flaw costing thousands of American lives and threatening the entire Allied war strategy. In late 1943, the U.S. 8th Air Force, flying from the damp fields of England, was being bled dry over Germany. Their new doctrine was daylight strategic bombing. The idea, pushed by the bomber mafia, was that precise daytime bombing of factories could break a nation's will to fight. The famous Norden bomb site was supposed to make it possible, but the strategy was failing, and failing catastrophically for one brutal reason. The bomber crews called it the Gap of Death. The B-17 Flying Fortress and B-24 Liberator were tough, heavily armed machines flown by brave young men. Formations of these aircraft were meant to defend themselves with overlapping fields of fire as they went deep into Germany. But the Luftwaffe had perfected its defenses. Fighting over their own homeland, German pilots knew exactly where to wait. American bombers did have escorts, but they were short-legged. The P-47 Thunderbolt was tough. The P-38 lightning fast, but both were too fuel-hungry. They were built for tactical battles over France, not thousand-mile missions. They could escort the bombers only for a few hundred miles before turning back. Bomber crews watched their little friends wag their wings and leave them alone for the most dangerous part. The Germans knew this moment was coming. This gap of death became a carefully prepared kill zone. Fighter wings gathered and attacked the exposed bombers in waves, sometimes 100 at a time, ripping through formations with head-on cannon fire. Losses were staggering. During Black Week in October 1943, the Schweinfurt raids were catastrophic. 60 bombers were lost in a single day, 600 men gone. A 25-mission tour, the path home for a bomber crew, became statistically impossible. Morale collapsed. The U.S. wasn't losing for lack of courage, but for lack of range. Engineers insisted the problem was impossible to solve. A fighter had to be light and agile, yet carrying fuel for a 1,000-mile mission made it heavy and sluggish. It was an engineering paradox. As 1943 ended, the one aircraft that could solve the crisis, the North American P-51, was sitting unused in North Africa. Most dismissed it as a failure. The Luftwaffe barely recognized its name. Bomber crews had never seen it. It was a ghost in the margins of the war. The reason for this obscurity went back to the Mustang's birth. It wasn't built for the U.S. Army. It existed because of a desperate British request in 1940, when the RAF was fighting for survival and needed fighters, any fighters, fast. The British approached North American Aviation to build the P-40 Warhawk under license. Dutch Kindleberger, the company's tough, brilliant leader, looked at the P-40 design and effectively said, "We can do better." He promised a new fighter in 120 days. They delivered the prototype in just 102. The NA-73X had a revolutionary laminar flow wing, giving it very low drag. It was sleek, fast, and superb at low altitude. The British loved it and named it the Mustang. But the first version had a fatal flaw. That flaw was its heart, the Allison V1710 engine. A reliable American engine, excellent below 15,000 feet. But the strategic air war was fought at 25,000 to 30,000 feet. Up there, the Allison simply couldn't breathe. Its supercharger was inadequate. With its single-stage supercharger, the Allison-powered Mustang gasped for air in the thin atmosphere. At high altitude, it became slow, underpowered, and easy prey. German Bf-109s and FW-190s could run rings around it. No Luftwaffe pilot feared it. The P-51A was useless as a high-altitude escort. The U.S. Army Air Forces had no interest in it for the European air war. So the aircraft was sent to secondary theaters, China, Burma, India, the Mediterranean, and for ground attack roles like the A-36 Apache. Pilots flying these versions liked the Mustang's speed at low altitude, and it was rugged enough for dive-bombing German positions. But it was not the miracle bomber escort desperately needed in Europe. Over Germany, the Mustang was considered a dead end. But a few sharp-eyed engineers, one especially, believed the problem wasn't the airframe but the engine. Meanwhile, 1943 remained a disaster. The 8th Air Force was close to breaking. The daylight bombing campaign was on the verge of collapse. The solution didn't come from America. It came from Britain, where the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, heart of the legendary Spitfire, offered stunning high-altitude performance. Its two-stage, two-speed supercharger let it breathe beautifully in thin air. A British test pilot, Ronnie Harker, flew an early Mustang and loved the airframe but hated the Allison engine at altitude. He wrote a memo with a simple idea: put a Merlin engine in the Mustang. It was a gamble, mechanically complex but worth the risk. Rolls-Royce engineers began experimental conversions almost immediately. They shoehorned the Merlin 61 into the Mustang's narrow fuselage. The results were astonishing. Suddenly, the aircraft soared at high altitude with the power and climb rate of a Spitfire. The transformation was so dramatic that pilots who tested it came back stunned. The Mustang kept its long, low-drag wings and excellent aerodynamics, but gained the high-altitude lungs it had always needed. Speed, power, and range surged overnight. North American engineers quickly partnered with Packard Motor Car Company, which was already building Merlin engines under license. Their refined version, the Packard V1650, would become the soul of the P-51B and later the iconic P-51D. But the Mustang's true superpower wasn't just speed or altitude, it was range. With the Merlin drop tanks and its slippery aerodynamic shape, the P-51 could now follow the bombers all the way to the heart of Germany and back. No gaps, no turning back. This single improvement rewrote the air war. Suddenly, escort fighters could stay with the formations for the entire mission. The Luftwaffe's carefully prepared ambush zones collapsed. Their tactics depended on bombers flying alone. Now they never were. By early 1944, the first Merlin-powered Mustangs arrived in England. The bomber crews saw a new silhouette sliding into formation. Long nose, bubble canopy, elegant wings. They didn't know it yet, but their survival rates were about to change forever. American pilots quickly learned the Mustang wasn't just fast, it was lethal. It turned tightly, climbed like a rocket, and dived with enormous energy. It could outrun, outturn, and outclimb nearly everything the Luftwaffe put in the air. Now the hunters became the hunted. Mustang squadrons were ordered not just to escort, but to seek out and destroy the German fighter force in the air and on the ground. The objective, break the Luftwaffe before D-Day. The impact was immediate and devastating. German pilots who had mocked the Mustang suddenly found it cutting through their formations. It attacked head-on from above or below and then chased survivors relentlessly. No one felt safe. When the Mustangs reached Berlin for the first time on March 6, 1944, German radio operators shouted in disbelief. A long-range escort fighter over the capital was supposed to be impossible, but there they were, 209 of them, changing the war in real time. For the bomber crews, it was the first time they felt true hope. As they crossed into Germany, the Mustangs stayed with them. No turning back, no waving goodbye. When the Luftwaffe rose to intercept, they found the skies already filled with American fighters. German ace pilots, the Experten who had dominated for years, suddenly faced a machine that erased their advantages. The Mustang could climb with them, dive faster than them, and stay in the fight longer. Their old escape maneuvers no longer worked. The Luftwaffe's fuel shortages made the situation worse. They had little time for training, while American pilots flew constantly. Every engagement drained Germany's shrinking pool of veteran pilots, a loss they could never replace. Mustang groups began targeting German airfields directly. At low altitude, they strafed runways, fuel depots, and aircraft lined up for takeoff. These attacks destroyed hundreds of fighters still on the ground, suffocating the Luftwaffe's ability to respond. By spring 1944, General Jimmy Doolittle changed the rules entirely. Instead of sticking close to the bombers, the Mustangs were ordered to sweep far ahead, clearing the air before the formations arrived. It was a bold move that shattered German defenses. This fighter sweep strategy caught the Luftwaffe by surprise. Their fighters rose to intercept the bombers only to be ambushed by Mustang units already waiting. Losses skyrocketed. For every Mustang shot down, Germany lost several irreplaceable aircraft. On the ground, German civilians noticed a change. The once dominant roar of Bf-109s and Fw-190s faded. New wrecks appeared in fields and forests. The Luftwaffe officers spoke in quiet tones. They were running out of pilots, planes, and time. American commanders realized they were witnessing a turning point. The P-51 wasn't just an escort fighter, it was a strategic weapon. With the skies clearing, D-Day could proceed. Without Mustang dominance, an invasion of France would have been suicidal. Even Hermann Goering, head of the Luftwaffe, later admitted defeat. He said he knew the war was lost the day American fighters escorted bombers all the way to Berlin. It meant Germany's last protective barrier had finally collapsed. By mid-1944, the P-51 had become the symbol of Allied air superiority. Its long range, high speed, and deadly precision made it the most effective escort fighter of the war. It fought everywhere from the North Sea to Romania and changed every battle it touched. Bomber crews wrote home about the change. Missions that once felt like death sentences now felt survivable. They watched Mustangs dive into enemy formations, guns blazing, scattering German fighters before they ever reached the bombers. The psychological impact was enormous. Luftwaffe pilots who once attacked with confidence now hesitated. They knew that somewhere above or behind them, a Mustang might be waiting to pounce. The element of surprise had shifted completely to the Allies. The Germans tried to adapt. They introduced new variants of the Bf-109 and FW-190 with better high-altitude performance. They even deployed the advanced Me-410 heavy fighter and improved anti-aircraft tactics. But nothing could reverse the momentum. American pilots continued to refine their methods. They flew in aggressive formations, used altitude to maintain energy, and attacked with coordinated timing. The Mustang's .650 caliber machine guns delivered devastating firepower in every pass. As the Allies pushed deeper into Europe, the Mustang's role expanded again. It escorted bombers targeting oil fields, rail lines, and aircraft factories, the lifelines of the German war machine. Every mission further paralyzed Germany's ability to fight. The Luftwaffe's final gamble came with the introduction of the Me-262 jet fighter. Fast and deadly, it could outrun any propeller-driven aircraft. But the Mustang's job shifted: catch them during takeoff and landing when the jets were slow and vulnerable. Mustang pilots adapted instantly. They circled airfields, waiting for the jets to descend. Many Me-262s were destroyed before they could climb to safety. Even Germany's most advanced technology couldn't escape the relentless pressure. By late 1944, the Mustang was everywhere. It swept across the skies of France, Belgium, and the Netherlands, protecting ground forces and attacking rail yards, convoys, and supply depots. Its endurance made it the perfect tool for a fast-moving front. The endgame came in early 1945. With the Luftwaffe nearly destroyed, Mustang groups roamed freely over Germany. They hunted the last operational fighters, destroyed transport aircraft, and crippled the remnants of German logistics from the air. For the men who flew it, the Mustang became more than a machine. It was a lifeline, a symbol of hope, and a weapon that helped shorten the war. Its combination of power, range, and precision made it one of the most important aircraft of World War II. In the final months of the war, Mustang pilots often flew 4, 5, even 6-hour missions. They crossed vast distances, escorted deep penetration raids, and struck targets that had once been unreachable. No other fighter of the era could match this reach. The aircraft's reliability became legendary. Ground crews kept Mustangs flying under brutal conditions: snow, mud, damaged runways. The Merlin engine performed dependably, and replacement parts were plentiful. The Mustang's uptime far exceeded expectations. As Germany collapsed, the Mustang continued to lead the aerial assault. It supported advancing armies, destroyed fleeing convoys, and neutralized pockets of resistance from the air. Everywhere the Allies moved, the Mustang was overhead. When American forces reached concentration camps, some Mustang pilots flew low passes to deter remaining SS units from harming survivors. These unofficial missions reflected how the aircraft had become a tool not just of war, but of liberation. By April 1945, the Luftwaffe was a shadow of its former self. Fuel shortages grounded most aircraft. Training hours dropped to near zero. Junkers and Messerschmitt factories lay in ruins. The once feared German air arm had been broken beyond repair. Mustang pilots often reported entire missions without seeing a single German fighter. Instead, they focused on ground targets, rail hubs, bridges, and troop movements, further hastening Germany's collapse. Air superiority had become total. When victory in Europe was declared, thousands of Mustangs sat lined up on airfields across the continent. Some pilots took final photos beside the sleek fighters that had carried them through the most dangerous skies of the war. Despite its dominance, the Mustang story didn't end in 1945. It went on to serve in dozens of air forces worldwide. It flew reconnaissance missions, ground attack sorties, and even early Cold War patrols. Its versatility kept it relevant for years. During the Korean War, Mustangs flew again, this time in a vastly different environment. Though jets now ruled the skies, the P-51 proved invaluable for close air support. striking enemy positions and supporting UN troops on the ground. In many ways, the Mustang outlived the era that created it. Museums, airshows, and private collectors still fly P-51s today. Its unmistakable engine note, the high, smooth whine of the Merlin, remains one of the most iconic sounds in aviation history.